am Shane Brickman Davis Delamore, and this is Code and Optimism, a show where we explore how to solve problems faster with software. This week I am traveling, so I'm recording this from sunny and snowy Denver, Colorado. This week's topic is, why do software projects fail? And I'm going to group it into sort of three major groups. I think there is the group of the project failed to meet the requirements within the allotted budget and time. So this sort of covers everything that's, went over budget, didn't get released in time, was buggy or slow at release, all those sort of things. So that is sort of a technical failure. There are projects that failed to be a commercial success, failed to show ROI. More or less, the requirements were wrong. So in one case, it's the requirements were not, we went over budget fulfilling the requirements. In another case, the requirements were wrong in the first place, so we never saw the value that we wanted to see. And the third category is a bit of a catch-all, but it's unforeseen events. Something happened that you didn't anticipate, didn't expect, and that made the project obsolete, made funding get cut short, derailed the project, etc. Now, I'm going to first bring us up to the 10,000 foot view and quote David Deutsch, which was a bit of the inspiration for this entire channel, on his concept of optimism. And his concept of optimism, as I said way back in one of the earliest episodes of the show, is not a Pollyannish perspective that the future is going to be great, but as an explanation of failure. An explanation of failure in that anytime we fail, his supposition is that we failed because we did not have enough knowledge. We didn't have the right knowledge to solve that particular problem and succeed. And that's really where the tagline at the end of this episode comes from, which is all problems are solvable with enough knowledge. Now, let's apply that to failed software projects. Again, using this as an explanation of failure, and the explanation is we didn't have the right knowledge to solve the problem. First case, we did not solve the technical problem. We did not meet the requirements within the given time or budget. Well, why does that typically happen? Well, it means something took longer than expected, which right away took longer than expected. What does that mean? Well, taking longer than expected means that we didn't have the knowledge. We didn't know how long something's going to take, so we were not able to adequately budget it. Or more likely, we went down some blind alleys. And so we wasted time and budget not being as productive as possible. The second category of software failure is when the requirements weren't right. When we were building the wrong tool, it didn't meet users' needs. When we launched it, it didn't fulfill the ROI. It didn't achieve the goals, the commercial success that we wanted it to. And again, ultimately, the knowledge that the way we built it isn't going to work is what we lacked at the beginning. In fact, if we had that knowledge way back at the beginning, we would have never done the whole path we did. Furthermore, there is a set of knowledge that we could have had, which would have been the right knowledge to tell us to build the right product that would have been there for a commercial success. So yes, indeed, in the second case of software failure, it is definitely just a failure of knowledge. Now, third case, when an unexpected event happens. Well, in a very trivial sense, if we knew that event was going to come, so it was not unexpected, it was actually expected, that would have been knowledge that we would have had, which would have allowed us to presumably succeed. But we would have had the right knowledge to navigate that event and succeed. Clearly, in all three cases, there is some piece of knowledge that if we had at the beginning, it would have made us successful. And we lacked that knowledge, and that is why we failed. The critical question comes, we don't have an oracle. We can't have all the answers from the future. We don't have a time machine. How do we acquire that knowledge we need to be successful along the way as we're developing our software? This is the critical thing that makes or breaks successful software projects. This is the one thing that will make a project successful or fail. Let's go through the three different modes of failure and explore how we can gain knowledge along the way to help avoid those failures. The first one being the technical failure of failing to achieve the requirements within the time and budget. The main thing is we fail to anticipate how long some aspects of technology would take to develop. And most of the time, that is a problem with integrations, I have found, where you're trying to get two things to work together and you don't understand how they will work together, if they will work together. But also sometimes it is brand new technological capabilities that you may not know if they're going to work. And in both cases, the answer is doing a spike, where you dive in and do a few days to a week-long deep dive to answer questions, not to build code, but to answer questions and find out what you need to know to make those decisions. It's very intentionally gaining knowledge to have a good estimate. The other key way we can acquire and use knowledge to make sure we meet our requirements on time and on budget is to notice when we are solving something one way and discover that it's taking more time than we expected. Because there's always multiple ways to solve a problem, and there are therefore some ways that are easier and cheaper, some ways that are more expensive in terms of time. So constantly adapting and sometimes abandoning paths quickly because we realize it's taking longer than expected to switch to a more effective path. These things all help. Of course, the biggest thing that helps get us releasing on time and on budget is to cut features, but that really goes into the second failure mode. The second failure mode being the requirements are wrong in the first place. We weren't building the right thing. We weren't going to get the ROI that we needed. That really comes down to pretty much lean startup way of thinking, which is get the MVP, literally the minimal valuable. It has to genuinely be valuable, but within that, it should be as minimal as possible. First piece of code you can get in the hands of some initial users, and then learn from them and find out what they actually need, adapt and pivot quickly. That will keep you on track towards learning and gathering the knowledge from the users and the market about what actually is going to hit the ROI that you need. That's how you gain that knowledge about what is the right product to build, what are the right requirements to achieve your ROI and success goals. The last category being unforeseen circumstances. The main thing you can do for that is, one, if you're already doing the first two categories of knowledge gaining, you might very well have a heads up about those unforeseen circumstances earlier, because you're going to already be paying attention. And that's perhaps the most important thing, is just to pay attention so that you can see that trouble coming as early as possible. The other aspect is really being a diligent person with respect to modular design. I've got many earlier episodes on how to do good modular design. If things are well modularized, you're much more able to adapt to changing circumstances. In fact, in general, I've got many earlier episodes on how do you make your code quality good, and good code quality means it can adapt to unforeseen circumstances. All software projects fail for one of three reasons. Either the technical requirements were not met within the budget, the requirements were wrong, they did not actually deliver the ROI needed, or there was some unforeseen circumstance. We know from David Deutsch that all failures are caused because of a lack of knowledge, and in each of these three categories, we need to gain knowledge along the way in order to avoid them. Rapid prototyping and spikes to minimize technological risk. We need to be releasing early and releasing often to minimize ROI risks. And we need to be structuring our software so that we are creating a modular piece of software so we can easily pivot when those unforeseen circumstances come up. That's it. Just do those three things and you're going to succeed. Of course, it's easier said than done, but just putting in the effort to try to do those three things are going to make a huge difference. And with that, thanks once again for spending your valuable time with me. I hope that this was a fun, if slightly different venue. Some nature sounds in the background and some beautiful snowy days. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I would love to hear from you. This is sort of my experience. It's a sample size of one. I've worked with lots of other people and lots of other companies, so I've seen it around. But what has your experience been? Have you seen failures that don't fit into one of my three categories? I would love to know what I've missed. There's definitely stuff I have missed, as always, and I would love to learn. So please send some comments to me. And once again, remember, all problems are solvable with enough knowledge.